Hello and welcome back to the Otakuology podcast. I'm your host, Otaku Mike, and I'm here to get us off started on this podcast. We, with me as always,
Oh,
is Jin, and we are talking about Gungrave episodes 5 and 6 tonight on the podcast.
yeah. Looks like tonight we're gonna have a good fight.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
So before we jump into this, one of the things that I want to touch on was the first time you watched this, and you were like, I think I'm coming around, because you're like, because these two episodes were pretty fucking good compared to the first 4 episodes.
Look, I don't know if they were like pretty good, but they were somewhat entertaining. I feel like.
Hey, you said pretty good, okay? So I'm gonna use.
Look, I might have been really tired when I called you that night. Okay,
that's fine. That's fine. If you added a little layer of delusion to it, and it was like blown out of the water, that's fine.
I do have to say though, I feel like Madhouse, the ones who animated this show,
yeah,
I kind of feel like they maybe put their B team on these a little bit of this, because there's sometimes where like faces will get weird or like one.
So I thought that too. So there's a few things we'll have to touch on through this because one of them spurred something that you said before.
What was that?
The whole part where you said about Harry getting in the car without Brandon.
Yeah.
And like, see ya, bud.
Yeah, see ya.
So we'll loop back to that at some point, but keep that fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
And then watching it now compared to like after all of the animations and stuff I have seen.
Yeah.
This one I feel like I still enjoy the art, but I also don't feel like it holds up to today's standards of things.
So today's standards, probably not, but maybe. I mean, I get people have definitely like a nostalgia for the Gungrave anime.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I had some nostalgia for it too because I own the series. I went out and bought
now watching.
I went out and bought the big box set of it, like the 7 DVDs. And I mean, I get it. It's probably like a real like underground niche anime, probably, in a sense,
Do you think it should have a resurgence?
Should have a resurgence?
Yeah, like it should come back.
Oh, I don't know.
Do you think that, or would you say like one of the things like that they're doing with part of the video games now, like they remaster it, update the art and stuff?
I'm honestly surprised we haven't gotten like a remaster of the first 2 video games. Because
for the video games,
yeah, because we got like Gungrave Gore, which is the newest Gungrave game.
I own that.
I'm surprised like we haven't gotten that, but I find it funny. Like I would put in the DVD for disc, so we're now on disc 2, guys. Just so you know,
disc 2.
Disc 2. There was an advertisement.
I'm still only on Hulu. I'll have to wait till we branch over to Netflix.
There's an advertisement for Gungrave Overdose on disc 2.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I popped it on and watched it. I was like, oh, this is kind of aged a little poorly. I mean, I don't.
Yeah. So I went to my brother's house, and it's really funny because I had a tote that was over there in their storage area that had my PS3 and PS2 video games in it.
Yeah.
And so like I knew that they had done it, but the other day I got to sit there and really look. They had a little shelf and they put all my games up on it to like display it. And I'm sitting there looking and I see this because, we're talking about it. So it stuck out a little more to me. I'm like, man, PS2, those are like the old days.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of that because one of my brothers also, like, for not the last birthday, but I think the birthday before that, they got me the Gungrave's gore
Yeah.
as a birthday present. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Gungrave is still a chugging along franchise to an extent. I mean, it might be a little bit on life support sometimes,
yeah,
but it's still going. Like it still has its fan base. Obviously, it's been released multiple times. The anime has
yeah, yeah.
for like different sets, and but got a Blu-ray. I think is one point.
I do think it could get a remaster and it would be just as good.
I really think like it Gungrave is definitely a product of its time.
Yeah,
And watching going back and watching it, I notice all the flaws in it animation wise. But like I'm not 100% like bored with it.
yeah,
Obviously if I was bored with the anime, uh I would like be like, hey man, come on, let's pick something else,
yeah,
you know. But like this one actually, these two episodes I did somewhat enjoy. Like
yeah,
I didn't think they were terrible, and I look forward to the next episode, which
yeah.
is like
Well, in this one, you can tell back in the day that it was a lot of straight hand drawing.
yeah,
Like,
or it was at least they started moving to like that digital like anime kind of thing.
uh, I don't know.
Well, because
I,
they
I
start because like with anime, like they used to paint the cells, and
yeah,
around this time they went and they would digitally paint them. So like they wouldn't actually
oh,
put like paint on the cells.
yeah.
So that's why it might look a little odd at times. But there's points in this where like people have like derpy fucking faces. And
So I'm not going to talk about the derpy faces because
uh
I feel like half of the battle with the derpy faces is the shading.
probably yeah.
So there a lot of the shading, especially on one character right now,
Uh-huh.
is throwing me off a little bit because I'm like, oh man, that has not aged very well.
One thing that I noticed, and we'll eventually talk about this anime, go through the topic or the discussing the actual anime, the story. One thing I noticed is the consistency of how different Brandon's necklace was. It would change in size.
Yeah.
So it would be like a small little like chain necklace. There are times where it looked like big balls, like necklaces attached, and it would shrink, grow big. Like somebody wasn't paying attention to detail or something like that. I feel
Brandon's magic necklace.
Brandon has some derpy fucking faces.
Well, so one thing I want to touch on, we did find out, I think it was this episode, that technically, because you could have almost formed an argument so far, right, that everything in this world besides the first episode was set in our world before they made like advances in science,
Are you
right?
talking about when they go to bet stuff?
Uh, well, right now I'm just
Yeah,
saying, like you could say it was like a parallel world to ours, like it was very far set up with it.
yeah. Are you talking about when they do they're like betting on the races?
Not yet.
Okay.
But we have all that stuff, so you could like say almost it's kind of like what our world. You could set it in our world, things like
Yeah.
that, And then we had you could say like with the first episode so far, they had like an advancement of, hey, there was an advancement in science. That's how like what are they called? I want to call them the Gorman, but I know that's not it.
The Orgman.
Yeah. Like that's how they were formed with this is advancement in science or whatever. But we did get a little bit going back off of what you said in this with the betting thing. Their horses aren't horses.
Yeah. They look like two-legged like anteaters almost.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, and we can't really tell that either because it looks like they're almost covered in blankets on the top part.
Yeah. But let's get into this anime. We pick up where we left off in the last one. Brandon and Harry are going with is it Randy?
Yeah.
Randy, and they go to this company that like Randy, I think Randy's like in charge of, which is like a shell for Millennia or Millennium, basically. And
Yeah.
we find out there that their Millennium has their hand in everything, every like different types of corporations, stuff like that. They prefer to be in the shadows. They control everything, basically, almost, it seems like,
Yeah.
to an extent. And they get there and they're like, oh man, we finally hit the big top. And we go and we flash forward 4 months later, and Brandon is in this seedy, like, office building kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
like
there's,
four desks pushed together with three phones on each desk.
yeah,
I think the one that nobody's using is a typewriter.
yeah,
There's like four bulletin boards with like sticky notes we can't really read. There's a little couch, and then like looks like cafeteria chairs.
kind of, yeah. And we meet his two coworkers, Wedge and Gary. Did you know their names?
I think I just knew Gary.
Okay, well, the older
'Cause-
guy's name is Wedge.
oh, see, I thought the old man's name was Gary.
No, Gary is the sleazy one.
Okay.
The sleazy one. And what they basically do is they're kind of like loan sharks almost.
Yeah.
And they take bets, or they get bets from people. And if they're sitting there watching the race, it's like, okay, so and so lost this much. Let's call him, or let him call us, you know.
Yeah.
We get this scene, which I thought was really funny, where Brandon's like, okay, pick up the phone, Brandon. And he picks up the phone. And he's like, may I help you?
Yeah.
Whatever he does. And I fucking busted out laughing.
Well, you forget the first thing he's like, answer the phone. And he picks it up and he's just sitting there.
And he's like, talk.
Yeah.
He's like, can I help you?
Yeah. And I like that because I feel like in this episode alone, we're getting more of Brandon's character. Because like every time he does something like a good job, he's like, thank you.
He's like, thank you.
Like, that's it. You know, like that's Brandon's character.
Yeah.
It's super simple. I feel like in this whole episode, we've went up, but we only had like 4 lines. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Kind of. I mean, sort of.
We got like thank you twice. We got hello. How may or we got hello, how may I help you?
Yeah.
And like one other thing.
Yeah. And so they end up going on these jobs to basically get money out of people who haven't paid and whatnot. And they're on a job, and on this particular job, Gary and Wedge like go through the front, and they're like, okay, Brandon, you go into the back. And he waits for them to basically like fish out this guy who hasn't paid anything on his bets. Which
Yeah.
I thought this scene was pretty cool. How just watching Brandon, which this scene actually had some pretty good, like, a little fight choreography in it, a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a one-sided fight choreography, but it was still
So
pretty good.
this is, and I'm gonna say, like, I still love it, but after you and I have basically reviewed and done all this stuff for over 5 years or whatever,
Yeah,
like watching it with a more like critiqued eye, I would say, for this scene right here that we're talking about, I feel like it's almost a 1-for-1 copy of the scene in episode 6
oh
outside
yeah.
the elevators.
No, I don't think that. No.
Well, because you have both those guys, they're running up,
Uh,
and then out of nowhere, like you see where they're running to. One guy's at the end of the hallway, the other guy's looking at the guy,
mm-hmm.
you know, and then Brandon like almost like shadow clones in, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then he punches him, or
No, he like he
does
does like
something.
a roundhouse kick or something.
Yeah, he punches him first.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that whole little like shadow, like, oh, I came out of nowhere kind of thing. Like for dramatic effect, I was like, are y'all copying this scene? Like,
because he was like,
the hell?
the guy was like coming at him with like a golf club, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "Come on, get out of the way," and he just like, "No, I'm not getting out of the way," you know.
Yeah.
And then we get this scene afterwards where Wedge takes Brandon to like the guy who's higher above him, and he starts to explain to him, "Hey, this is what we do. We get the money, we give it to other people, and they basically launder the money throughout the organization." Is what they do.
Yeah.
And we go and they go deliver the money, and we find a familiar face.
Which, had we gotten to that yet?
Yeah, what?
To this part?
Yeah.
I still feel like this part's too early yet.
Is it?
I think so.
I don't know about that.
Because they talk about the stuff. He answers the phone. They do that. We get kind of the inner monologue from him, which is where we get most of his lines of
Yeah.
what's happening in the past.
I mean, they might do one other thing before this, but I mean, it's probably like another job or something. I
Because
feel
this
like.
is, yeah, because we haven't gotten to the mom scene yet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the mom scene is like later on in this episode.
Yeah.
And so they basically go and like give all this money to them. They're like, "Oh, they've given us more than usual. Business has been good. And we end up seeing a familiar face, which Brandon doesn't notice his voice right away, which is odd. Which because Harry shows up
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, thanks. I'll take this money and I'll be able." And he gives Brandon a little wink.
You want to know a secret?
What
Brandon's deaf.
is he?
No.
Oh, yeah, I could be like, sure, maybe
I
Brandon
was,
probably
I
is
was
deaf.
like, I was like, I could tell you that, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I agree. Like the reason why he doesn't talk a lot is because
I
he's
mean, that would make perfect sense.
I was like, I wonder if I could bullshit you for a second and see if you go, yeah, that makes total sense.
I mean, it does because he doesn't talk.
Yeah,
He
because
doesn't talk at all.
and most of the time, like when he responds to somebody, he's looking at their face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
I yeah. Go ahead.
but yeah, I mean, that's just one of the things. Like, I feel like you could watch this or get somebody else to watch it and tell them the same thing, and people would believe that shit.
Yeah. And Wedge ends up taking off, and Harry and Brandon end up getting together and hanging out at I think it's like a cafe or like a something like that.
I think it's a strip joint.
Is it?
Yeah, we just don't go because obviously the timing. We don't go into it because it's called Senora Mexicana.
Was it Rosa's Mexicana?
Yeah, Rosa Mexicana.
I think it was.
Um, because originally, like I thought, because of who was in there, it was going to be like a diner kind of setup
Yeah.
that served like Mexican, and then whenever you get to what they're eating,
Yeah.
I really feel like it's actually like some kind of a club.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah,
Cool,
and
because Harry said this is his favorite place to go, like a restaurant or whatever.
hey, Harry could be a pervert.
I mean, he could be. He's kind of a ladies' man.
Right? Um, but so we do go in here and whatnot, and this is one of the big spots that I wanted to ask you a question on
Okay.
because we do officially meet, storyline wise, we meet Ballard Bird Lee first.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like we talked about in previous episodes, that they have these, outrageous names, but then they only use like the small name
Yeah.
because nobody calls him Ballabird. And kudos for his voice actor because he said that perfectly, and I was like, man, every time we try and say it, I feel like we're about to fuck up.
Well, do you know who that is?
Yeah, it's Spike.
It's Spike. Yeah.
Oh, I was right.
Yeah, it's Spike.
I was pulling that out of my ass.
It's Spike. It's Steve. It's Steve Bloom.
That's great. Yeah, I was pulling that out of my ass. Lucky as shit.
No, yeah, that's Spike.
But now we have Max Pound Max.
Oh, Bob Poundmax? Is
Yeah,
that his name?
yeah. And so this
Which
is
can I just point out
shoot.
the way his eyes are, he reminds me of like a character from like Tintin.
I could see that. I I feel like he's closer to like Charlie Brown.
Mhm, I got really Tintin vibes from him.
But this is also the part like we see him eating all the time.
Yeah.
When we see him in the first episode, because remember I told we were going to have this weird difference of things.
Yeah, no, I watched a little bit of the next of episode 7,
Yeah.
and you can see like he gains weight.
Well, I'm talking about the first one where he's a little
Oh.
chubby guy.
Yeah, no, he and then in episode 7 he ends up gaining weight.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's like a 5-year time skip.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's still I don't think it's as hard as like modern day where he's like this big chubby guy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I figured that would be one of the ones. So I wanted your opinion on that of like how you see him then and then you see him now. He's one of the characters I feel like makes the biggest feat of
His
character design change.
his metabolism stopped eventually.
Fuck yeah. Well, he probably just kept eating.
Yeah.
Because and they kind of crack a joke on it, which, obesity.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "Oh, are you still eating?" He's got like 10 plates of food in front of him. And then Lee's not going to finish the one plate of food he had. He's like, "Oh, I'll eat that too."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, he likes to eat. That's his stick that he likes to do.
yeah.
That's his thing. He's probably eating to fill a void in his life or something. I don't know. He's probably bored eating. I don't know.
He's probably always eating because he's always sitting. He having to
Mm,
listen and bide his time. So he's like, "Well, I can't play video games because I got to focus. So food's the next best thing to that."
probably. And they start talking about how, they want to like get into the inner family and stuff like that,
Yeah,
which only a certain amount of people are privy to like get into the inner family,
yeah, yeah.
from what I remember.
Yeah. Well, in this too, pointing it out for you basically,
Hmm.
because I don't feel like I could point it out to anybody else on this because they'd have to really watch it. But you can kind of see the way that things are in this is that Lee and Bob have both kind of attached themselves to Harry, and
Oh,
while
yes.
you feel like now that they've included Brandon in as one of the boys, so to speak,
Yeah.
but you still have to think about it. And I think this is one of the reasons why the first episode is kind of needed, is because if not, you would go into it believing that Brandon was one of the boys the whole time. So getting this kind of blindsided thing that we know is going to happen in the future
Hmm.
with whatever fallout happens between him and Harry and he advertently dies,
Yeah.
like you can kind of see that here though.
Oh, no, you can definitely see in these 2 episodes, like, Harry is like manipulating the situation at hand.
Yeah. But like before, I feel like when I originally watched this when I was young, I didn't catch that. I didn't see
Yeah.
it. But you saying the whole thing about whenever they got in the car, like Harry's like, "Oh, bye, Brandon. I might never see you again." Ha
Yeah.
ha ha. Like that's kind of what really made me think about it to have a
It's like,
separate eye.
see you later, Brandon.
So, like, even in this sense, like, I feel like Harry is still doing that.
Yeah.
He's not wanting to really be friends with Brandon for anything. He's wanting to keep that friendship because he knows how he can use Brandon.
Oh, no, most definitely in this situation, yes.
And he thinks that he can kind of ride Brandon's coattails, especially when we get more into the next episode where he says, uh, I'm not supposed to tell you Maria's location, but I'm going to.
Oh, no, yeah, he tells that in this episode.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because after they end up going to, so after they have this meeting, they basically Brandon and his Wedge and Gary which it's not in this episode, but it's in the next episode. Um,
Yeah, these ones are both really close. So
yeah,
that's the problem with this. Like, I know we
We-
keep jumping back and forth between the episodes, but they fit
Wedge
together so nicely.
Wedge comes in one day and he's like, "Okay, guys, like we got something we have to do. Like somebody basically stole from the organization. They stole like jewelry and gold and stuff, and we were asked to basically track them down and take care of them and get the stuff back.
Bro, kick their ass.
Yeah, they're gonna kick their asses, you know." Um, and what they end up doing, they end up getting the stuff, and they end up killing the two people who stole the stuff. They didn't know that they stole from the organization, is
Yeah.
what if I remember correctly. And we get this really interesting scene afterwards where Brandon and Gary take Wedge home for some reason. I don't remember if he's like not able to drive or what, but they take him home.
I think it's because they only have like one car,
Yeah.
and uh, probably the buses stopped running or whatever.
And you know what we also forgot? Brandon lives at the office.
We were getting there. Yeah.
But no, they take him home, and this scene right
Oh,
here.
pause for a second.
Okay,
So here's the big question I had for you, and I had it mentally checkmarked in my head.
okay.
What do you think he was eating in the can?
Oh, it was probably like
It
some.
looked like pieces of spare rib.
Look, probably like some kind of like processed meat, maybe some
Yeah,
spam.
yeah. Well, because it was brown, so it looked
Yeah,
like some kind of like spare rib in a can
yeah.
that wasn't like cooked. And I was sitting there watching it, and like it's the same color every time he pulls it out. And I was like, maybe he's eating a can of
Well,
like
because you know
beef
you can get
beef
like
soup.
what like the cooked chicken that's in like a can,
Yeah,
you know. So
yeah.
like it was probably like some kind of beef or something. I feel like.
Yeah, but I think this is also a part too, like we talked about, like the distortion of size,
Yeah.
because it looked like the size of a cat food can. So when you're
Yeah.
looking at it, I was like, no, I thought originally when I watched that it was a real size can, like a can of beans.
No,
And then watching the
it was like cylindrical, like a cat food can, but it
yeah,
wasn't as tall of a can like a can of beans.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it was wider.
yeah,
So
it was wider,
I mean, it really looked like the little chunks of beef you get out of like like a
like
vegetable beef soup.
or like a can of cat food.
Nah, no.
What if he was eating cat food?
See, and that's what I thought the first time he took a bite, and I was
He's
like, "Oh
thinking maybe he was eating
my
some
god!"
fancy feast or meow mix,
Yeah, it was in some fancy
some
feast.
friskies.
Whatever before they started putting it in their little plastic containers, it was in the cans. Here you go, Brandon. Here's your fancy feast. Oh my god,
But yeah, I mean, I feel like Brandon got the short end of the stick when joining Millennium.
this is true. This
Like,
is true.
but after they end up killing these guys and going to
And
Wedge's house,
and do you think the reason why he got put in the position he did is because he doesn't talk?
probably,
Because like Harry's already moved twice,
I bet
and
you
he's
they probably think he's like slow.
yeah, I can see that. I can see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
But anyways, so we move back into Wedge's house, where we drop Wedge off. Brandon does, and we see this scene where
Grandma.
Wedge's mom shows up,
Yes.
and she's like, "Oh, you're home late." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, mom. I've been really busy." And she's like, "Oh, you look so tired. This and that." A very loving, doting mom who is very much like getting up there in age. I feel like because Wedge is already kind of an older guy.
Yes, yes, he
And
is.
he's taking care of his mom and stuff like that, and he's putting on this facade. You know, he's a family man by night and like a mobster by day or whatever. You know,
Yeah, he's the doting son at night, and
yeah,
she thinks he's an office worker.
yeah,
But obviously, clearly, that's not true. And one of the other things that kind of stuck out to me is he didn't really pull out a key or whatever for the door.
no,
I kind of wonder if the door was already unlocked.
probably.
So if that tells you anything, the
He'll
doors
probably
aren't
be like,
locked.
"Hey, don't mess with this house." Is what I
Eh,
would probably,
the doors aren't locked. I
yeah,
just think he's not. He kind of goes off the thing of being feared as well instead
yeah,
of making friends, and nobody has the balls to come track him down.
yeah, probably, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, we get that whole scene. We have where they're going back. He's going to drop Brandon off at the office and everything
hmm
else. Um,
and yeah, we see Harry again.
yeah, we see Harry, which Harry almost gets his ass kicked because
Yeah,
the door got messed with, and
yeah,
fucking creeper. Uh,
he's
you
sitting
know,
there in the dark.
it's sitting there in the dark. And Brandon comes in, and it's like,
He's like,
oh,
"Hey, Brandon."
yeah, hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Brandon? I know where Maria is.
I know where Marie is, and I just wanted to tell you that you know you're gonna have to move up, and if you want to do that, I just wanted you to know that I basically greased some palms for y'all to get that mission tonight.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you know,
yeah.
because this job's not gonna cut it.
It's not going to cut it. It's nickel and dime place.
Yeah, which so we'll circle back to this too. I feel like this is also a cornerstone of another thing of why the betrayal is going to happen.
Yeah, because Harry wants everything.
Yeah, well, for this right here,
Yeah,
and we'll touch on that here in a second. But we have where Brandon leaves and he ends up walking down a path where he sees what's her name,
Maria.
Maria.
Yeah, I believe she's at
Um,
like school. She's at college or something.
I think she's walking home.
Is she? Because she looked like she was around people like who were in like have like school books and stuff.
Yeah.
Because Harry was
Well,
like, "Hey, I know where she's going to school at."
yeah. Well, I think that's where they were walking home from school.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so we get that, which there's not really anybody around, which that makes me question too when we see the next part where they're in the diner
Yeah.
or whatever. It makes me question why nobody called this for this first time.
Well, they do.
They, they saw each other, and then when they went to the diner, there were people there that saw him, and that's when they got the call for it.
Yeah, I think they were like possibly like waiting to see what happened. Which we can move into the next episode because
Yeah.
this episode ends with them meeting again, and Maria is like shocked, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it's Brandon."
And then we get at the end of it, we get the
Yeah, and
you
so
get you gotta admit they got some pretty fucking good music though.
they do have really good music. But we end up in the episode 6 where they're at like this like cafe or diner outside place, and they're talking about like oh Brandon, I moved into the mansion. I'm going to school, this and that. How have you been? What are you doing?
And I think this is the second, or they've met a few times already.
I think this is the same day. Like
I
I
don't
don't.
I don't think so because I'm pretty sure Brandon has that little monologue part where right before this that says they met a couple times.
But they haven't. Like she says, she hasn't seen him in like 4 months in this part.
I have no idea.
Yeah. And so we see the guys, they're watching them, and that's when they gets the call the next day,
Yeah.
and they come from the top and they find out like, oh, Brandon's messing with Maria.
Yeah.
He's coming around Maria, and they basically put a stop to that. They're like, no, we're not. You're not doing this, Brandon.
You're in the organization
You
and
can't do it.
Millennium. You can't do that.
You can't do it. And then that's when we meet up. After this is when we meet up with Harry again, and they start talking. He's like, I didn't really want to give you Maria's address to where she was, and stuff like that. And then these guys show up. They're like, "Are you Brandon Heat?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm Brandon Heat." And they take him to like the middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah. So that was one of the things I liked in the first one from the first episode 5
Uh
with
huh.
this with Wedge, because he doesn't call him Brandon for a long time. He just calls him Brandon Heat every time.
Or
Brandon
or the
Heat,
or they
Brandon Heat,
call
bring in the
or
heat.
or they call him New Face for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
They're like, "Hey, New Face."
And then or they just use the full name. Like it's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, Brandon Heat, come here, Brandon Heat.
Yeah. But hopping back with the two guys,
Yeah.
so they pick him up and then they go see your favorite character right now.
Who, Big Daddy?
No, don't they go see the other guy first?
No,
Uh,
they don't. They don't.
Kevin, Kenneth,
No,
Kyle,
no. Who are you talking about?
the the guy, not Bear, the other one that you like,
Oh, Bear.
not Bear, the other one.
I like Bear. I don't know who else you're talking about. Oh,
The other
Randy? Are you talking about Randy?
Randy, yeah.
No, they don't go see Randy.
Because I thought they went to at some point. I thought they went to go see Randy.
No, they go to Big Daddy's place, the mansion.
When does Randy pop up?
Randy pops up back later on in the episode.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I was
Ran-
like, where the fuck is Randy at? Like,
you
I
know,
know we saw Randy.
Randy pops up like later on at the party and stuff.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. And so they get to Big Daddy's house, and Brandon's like, "Oh, what's going on here?" He sees this old man messing with his fishing lures, and he's like, "Oh, so you're Brandon Heat, huh?" And he's like, "Hey, Brandon, have you ever fished before?" And so
Right.
Big Dad, what?
Wouldn't this be the perfect part to like if it was Goodfellas or something to get hit?
Yeah, probably because he's in the middle of nowhere.
Sleeping with the fishes.
But he finally meets Big Daddy,
Face to
and
face, yeah.
face to face, yeah, and they go fishing. They go
Right,
they go fishing, and Big Daddy tells him the story of like why Maria is with him now. The fact that his friend did something wrong and he was repenting for it
right.
because he accidentally got her mom killed.
Yeah, yeah.
Very interesting. And Big Daddy asked Brandon, he's like, "Hey, do you hate that I did this? Do you hate that I basically took Maria in?" And he's like, "No, I don't hate it, And he teaches Brandon how to fish, and Brandon catches a fish.
Yeah. Well, so two things with this. One thing is I kind of get the ick in this part because originally I thought this part was pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
But thinking about it, I really got the ick in this part because of it's basically like Big Daddy's going through like a grooming process with her. Now, did it really mean to go that way? I'm not
I
sure,
think it goes that way later on, like when we
but
hit like the
it
5 year jump.
it does feel like it's going that way, which kind of gives me the ick.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Um, but the other thing is, I feel like there was more he was giving Brandon than just learning how to fish.
Yeah,
Because he said, you wait for your time, you do all this other stuff. I really feel like that was also him telling him like how to do stuff for the business as well.
yeah. No, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that in this aspect.
So, and then he tells him, hey, you can come see Marie anytime. You just can't see her outside of the house. You have
And
to
you
see
can't
her at the house.
and you can't tell her what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, is what he says. You can't tell her that you work for me or work for the organization because Maria thinks that Big Daddy is like a businessman basically.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not a mobster.
Everybody's a mobster.
But I love this next scene when Brandon shows back up with Wedge and Gary, and he brings them the fish.
Yes.
He brings them the fish, and they're like, "What the fuck are we supposed to do with this? We don't have a woman to cook us some fish."
Right. And they say the whole thing about what's the other guy's name? Not Wedge.
Gary.
Gary. And Gary says the whole thing about this fish talks even less than Brandon does.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, "Brandon, you gotta tell me all the secrets." And like Wedge gets called off to go collect some money, and before he goes, he's like, "Brandon, if you get married or whatever before I do, I'm gonna kill you."
Yeah. But Wedge also, you mean Gary tells him that?
Yeah, Gary tells him that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because Wedge tells us that his mom's gonna cook it up for him,
yeah.
and Gary goes real quick, changes his tune from basically like, "I can't believe you did this, Brandon. What are we doing with this?" to
Hey, we get
after,
some drinks and fish.
yeah, after Wedge offers that he's gonna open up the good bottle of stuff too.
Yeah,
He's, oh yeah, his Wedge's mom will cook it for us, and
which they
we'll
do
get,
that in this episode.
yeah,
They
yeah.
do like a little montage, and then one of them's like them eating fish and drinking.
Yeah. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Uh, but backing up just a little bit for a second, I also
Uh-huh.
feel like the whole part we were talking about where the two guys came to pick Brandon up when him and
Harry.
Harry were at the diner
Yeah.
thingy.
Hmm.
It kind of in this episode shows like how they've moved up, because when we go from the little diner that they had that was their home and everything else to what diner they're in now,
Yeah,
that's not their home or anything else, like you kind of get this whole thing of where that they've kind of moved up the chain of life.
a little bit.
But
Yeah,
then if you really think about it too, I mean, Brandon is still like nonchalantly sleeping and living in the same place he worked.
yeah,
So,
which is
you know,
odd.
yeah, so it's kind of like, has have have we taken Brandon out of the bad part of town, uh but not taken the bad part of town out of Brandon?
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah. Is this where he has the nightmare where Harry kills everybody
I think so.
after they do everything and whatnot?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which that seems very kind of horrifying.
Well, actually, that might be in episode 7,
No, it's not. It's in this one.
because I don't remember seeing that part.
Yeah, it's in episode 6. He like wakes up from a cold sweat on the couch, and he's like, and he has like an actual shirt on and not a tank top, which is weird to see. But he has this dream where like everybody dies, like because Harry kills everybody and whatnot, and we move from that to
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember catching this part.
yeah, it's very fast. It's a very fast scene, and we move from that to we find out what was it? I think it's no. Brandon goes to see Maria,
Yeah,
and no, I think it's before that. Brandon goes to see Maria, and she's talking to him and whatnot. And she tells him, "Oh, I want to move out eventually, get a job." And Big Daddy basically cock blocks him. He cock blocks Brandon so hard,
yeah.
which he uses his actual name, which is Uncle Usagi, is his name. Or that's what Maria calls him.
So is this before he dies and becomes a rabbit?
I don't know, maybe.
Wouldn't that be a twist if that's who Usagi-chan actually was? He got isekai'd and reborn as a rabbit. Oh my god! Think of the title. I used to be a mob boss, and
Now I'm a samurai rabbit.
now I'm reincarnated as a samurai buddy.
But yeah,
Great
this scene was really funny because he was trying to act like, "Oh, I don't know who Brandon is. Nice to meet you, Brandon Heats."
Yeah. Yeah.
And they go eat their weird looking pie, which I thought it was a waffle. I thought it looked like a waffle, not a pie.
See, I must have blinked because I don't remember that part either.
Yes, it's like, and then we move from that, and then we go to like this party, and we have
That's
Harry.
and this is where I remember where they have the party
Yeah.
and they have where it's kind of like two things are going on at the same time.
Hmm.
We have where Brandon is almost like Maria's date
Yeah.
and it is dancing with her and all this other stuff. And then we have where um,
Harry.
Bob and Harry and Lee are all kind of doing like a side mission.
Yeah, they're not going against the Millennium, but they're doing something on the side without them knowing,
Yeah,
which is they're going to try to take out this other gang called Thunderbolt, I think it is,
yeah,
if I remember correctly.
yeah. That sounds
And
right.
because they want to put a hit out on Big Daddy, and they wanted to stop the party, but they didn't. Like Big Daddy didn't want to stop the party and stuff. And they go and they actually kill these guys who try to put a hit out on Big Daddy, which gets the eye of Bear because he's like, "Oh, you guys really want to rise up to the top, don't you?" And we go from there to Brandon and Maria dancing and stuff like that, and we see Big Daddy mingling with I get not his cohorts, but people who like are affiliated with him
Yeah.
and stuff. And we see the scene where Brandon ends up walking off and going to the restroom. He comes back and he hears like something like a commotion a little bit. He sees two guys dead in an elevator.
Yeah.
And he picks up this gun and I think he drags their bodies out of the elevator because at first they're in the elevator and then they're in the hallway. And right as he's doing this and he's getting up, Big Daddy and his people show up and he's like, "Brandon Heat, what are you doing?"
Yeah, because he thinks he did it.
He thinks he did it. And this guy shows up. He's like, "Big Daddy, I'm going to kill you." And Brandon like uses his ninja shadow move, gets in front of him. Somebody
So
get
is that what we're gonna call it? The ninja shadow
the
move.
ninja shadow move because he shoots and somebody gets hit and they fall on Randy because Randy was going to try to protect Big Daddy, but he couldn't get to him.
Yeah, and then
So
this is where that hadn't happened yet. This is
yeah,
where the guy was running up, or he was standing there, shot, hit the guy in front of Big Daddy,
mm-hmm.
and then that's
the,
when Brandon spun around and they both started kind of going at each other. That's when he had the shadow clone move.
and then he ends up shooting him, and then Brandon gets shot. And this scene made me laugh. He's like, "Young Big Daddy's like, young Brandon, why did you do this? Did you do this for Millennium, or did you do this for Maria?"
Right.
And he's not saying anything. He's like, "Maria,"
It's passed out.
and he's like, So
and
all
then
in all,
we get that really good like saying that he says at the end when he's talking about that as well.
what is that?
Well, it's like kind of when he's like fading out, and
Oh
he,
yeah,
but it's
he
like modern day him saying it.
he does like his monologue that he does every episode or whatever.
Yeah, like whatever it is. But yeah. So this is also one of the things I feel like too. Now that we've covered this area, where I feel like Harry was trying to set Brandon up where he would kind of rise up and Harry could kind of like pull the strings for Brandon to do the whole coattail whatever
Yeah,
and used him to get up that way. But now because of Maria and Brandon's relationship prior and whatnot, now he's actually rubbing shoulders or elbows with Big Daddy.
and the fact that he just saved his life.
Well,
Like,
not Harry didn't know that at this point,
yeah, well, Brandon
but
ends up saving Big Daddy's life, so he's got to end for life, basically.
yeah, but I think that's one of the things with this thing with Harry that also made it easy for him to backstab Brandon
Yeah,
because it was like, hey, well, I was supposed to use you to get up there too, and now like you're already in the chicken coop.
Yeah, you're in the castle, and I'm, on the lower level or something like that, a
Yeah.
little bit of the castle.
So because there was an alternate route that Brandon was able to take, and not because it was any device of his own, we all know Brandon at this point, like he doesn't do shit. But
Yeah, he doesn't do shit unless like provoked or something.
yeah, so I mean, for that to happen and for him to be able to get up that, I think really infuriated Harry, because Harry's like scheming, he's doing all this other stuff, and it's a lot harder for him to do it than just like it kind of fell into Brandon's lap because he's lucky.
Yeah, he's lucky and he's like a decent guy.
Yeah. So um I think that's kind of this little kind of segue we're commotioning into for while uh while Harry is more able to basically stab Brandon in the back later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's what's gonna happen. I felt like these two episodes were they were better than the last four. I, animation quality, it's whatever. The animation is what it is. But
Yeah.
story wise, like things are starting to come together. Things are starting to move into place. And I feel like in like this first four episodes, like were honestly kind of slow.
Yeah.
They were slow and like not moving really at all. But like things are starting
Do
to
you,
move.
do you also think that they're slow just because of how we cover things?
No, I thought they were slow when I was watching them.
Okay. I
Yeah.
That's one thing that I always have to tell myself is the reason why some things feel slower is because we're watching it two episodes or one episode at a time. And then we come back to it like 2 weeks later, and I'm like, it feels like it's been a whole month since I've watched this.
Yeah, no, like I rewatched these two episodes twice.
Yeah,
I watched them like on Monday and I watched them today and when I got home. See,
yeah.
like I've watched these and then I watch them again just to like refresh my memory and stuff.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm not 100% paying attention the first time
Well,
I watched it.
I just mean from like before when we watch the thing, like our next one, whenever we watch the next episode of Bubblegum Crisis, I'm gonna feel like we've been out of the game of watching Bubblegum Crisis for like a year.
Well, also
Like,
we've kind of like been stockpiling our episodes, so we're not
it's true.
having to review everything like
We're reviewing
like
everything.
reviewing everything so fast. I feel
Yeah,
like we used to have to do. I feel like,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean these two episodes were fun. I feel like Brandon's starting to somewhat get a character, uh, ish.
How may I help you?
How may I help you?
all the only character he's got right now is being polite. Okay,
And he learned how to fish.
that's true.
He, he
Character
caught
development.
he caught a fish.
Oh, and he finally used a gun. We
Oh
can
yes,
finally say that.
yes, he used the gun finally, and he
So
got he got shot.
yeah, yeah, he did. Um, so
And he learned how to dance a little bit.
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I know he did at the party. Like
Yeah,
Maria teaches him how to dance because he's like, I don't know how to dance.
yeah. That makes me think we may have to cover the Devil May Cry anime.
Which one?
The like, is it the third one? How
There's
many anime
two.
are
There's
there?
two. So there was a Devil May Cry anime back when Devil May Cry 4 came out. And now there's going to be a new one on Netflix.
Oh, then I guess it's the old one.
Well,
When
we
the
can cover.
fourth one came out,
There is no four. Yeah, when the fourth one came out, a Devil May Cry anime came out.
I'll have to look at it because
Yeah,
I watched one before for the
it,
fourth one came out.
it was like 13 episodes, and it was an anime. Do you not remember this?
No, because
Because it's supposed to take place in between 2 and 4. like the series for Devil May Cry.
I have no idea. The one I'm
Yeah.
thinking of was all part of 3 because
No.
you have Dante and he's young the whole time.
3 is the prequel series. 3 is the prequel. It goes
Okay.
3, 3, 1, 2, anime 4, 5 is what it is. And now they did like a whole reboot with the new anime that's coming out.
I have to look. It's the one that has the really catchy song that I like.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably you're probably thinking of Devil May Cry like the animation.
Devil May Cry, the
Because it's the one.
anime.
There's a little girl in the anime that like loves Dante.
I'm gonna have to look that up because that does not sound.
Yeah, she like loves hanging around Dante and stuff.
Let's see.
Yeah,
Devil May Cry, the animated series,
yeah,
2007.
yeah,
The fuck?
yeah. No,
That,
I remember. I remember buying this because I bought it. I bought the first DVD the night I bought Devil May Cry 4,
you lied to me.
and
It says it's set between the events of Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 2.
well, the Devil May Cry 2 is weird. Okay, it's some people say it's not a part of the franchise because it was so bad. Anyways, like I remember this anime specifically coming out because I got the first 2 DVDs, and then ADV Films, who was releasing it, went bankrupt, and they couldn't finish the anime.
That's funny.
They couldn't finish publishing it out here, so Funimation picked it up and then published the last DVD for the box set.
That's funny, yeah, because I watched this when it was on Netflix.
Yeah. But there is a new Devil May Cry anime coming out soon on Netflix.
We're gonna cover both of them.
I mean, we could if you wanted to.
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't know if the old one's streaming on Netflix or anything anymore.
I'll find it. It's not.
You know, but yeah, I would totally watch the new one. The new one looks really good.
Yeah.
The old anime has some problems, even though I really like it.
Let's see. It looks like it's on Hulu,
Oh, is it okay?
so I'll have
I
to
would
double.
I would watch the old Devil May Cry anime again.
You guys heard it here, folks. Okay, me and Mike, we talk about what we're gonna watch in the future on show just for you guys. Now, all you guys have to do is let us know, comments, Instagram, other places you can find us, and go, hey guys, yeah, we want to watch that. Which the only bad thing is we probably don't fucking care on that part because we're gonna watch Devil May Cry anyway. But when we do polls, you guys get to vote on that stuff, and that's
Should
usually
we no?
it.
Should we watch Devil May Cry or Devil May Cry?
Yes. Wait. There's a third option. Should we watch Devil May Cry?
Or Devil May Cry?
You got 3 options here. Oh, how dickish would it be to have? Should we watch Devil, May, or Cry? like a poll with 3 answers, and it's just Devil May Cry, but on each one.
Should we watch Devil May Cry, Devil Man Cry Baby, or Devil May Cry?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That'd be a lot because then we have to get on to which Devil Man.
Yeah.
Shit.
But anyways, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed these last 2 episodes. They were fun. They're fun and fun. They're fine and fun.
Yeah. But they're better.
I look forward to the 5-year time skip.
Yeah.
Which is the next episode.
Yeah. Well, and I can't wait till we get further into part of that. And like we kind of touched on before, with like the video games still kind of going strong and everything, is I would either like a remaster of this original series, or for them, because of how advances in animation have gone, I really feel like we could have like a new storyline with maybe this incorporated into part of it that also touch on other characters, like the rock star guy that we talked about that's an overdose.
Yeah.
and some other stuff like that. Because this makes a really good series for like getting your feet wet on like knowing the prehistory of like how Beyond the Grave was made and things like that. But it doesn't sink its teeth more so into the video games at all. And
Yeah.
I think if you don't know part of the lore and things into the video games, like you can watch this and go, yeah, it's a good series or whatever, but I don't think that you can stand by and fully grasp the whole concept of it. It would be like watching Naruto and then watching the end of Naruto or watching Boruto and being like, well, what the fuck happened in between all that?
Yeah.
You know, so um,
But yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I look forward to watching more, and make sure to comment on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That helps us out quite a bit, in letting people know our podcast exists. Share the podcast, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
yeah, make suggestions. Let
Yeah.
us know what else you would like us to cover. Obviously, it's Devil May Cry, but we would like to hear you say Devil May Cry personally to our faces. Okay?
All right. All
Okay.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
See you next Tuesday.